Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Gray Area here on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, simulcasting on the Sparta HQ Network. I am Mr. Bennett, joined by my partner, as always,
This is Sparta!
the ghost of Sparta, aka Peter, aka Panayotis. Yasu, my brother, what's going on?
What is going on? And happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. And certainly your dad, he's still, still alive and kicking and being obstinate as usual.
Yeah, unfortunately. He said three words to me and it hanged up on me today.
Well, again, if you see him, tell him Happy Father's Day. Certainly from my side, certainly for all the brothers out there, all the men out there who are or fathers to biological children, to children that aren't yours. I know that's a hot topic in this area now. Is it still okay to be a stepdad? I know that's a topic that's been broached many times in these spaces and whatnot, and or just stepping in to care for a child that may not be your own, being a mentor or whatever. But I just appreciate any man who decides to step up and do that. That used to be an honorable thing back in the day, but now guys are starting to question, just given the legal system the way it is, that is it still certainly in a man's best interest to take on that responsibility. But certainly salute to the brothers who have, and certainly I know a lot of brothers that I know personally. A lot of us, certainly had guys that we looked up to who were mentors and father figures to us who didn't have to be. So certainly I appreciate those guys for stepping up and doing, certainly what they've done. But certainly good to be here again, once again tonight. Just make sure when you come in tonight, make sure that you hit the like button. Certainly when you come in, certainly it helps the algorithm. And certainly if you want to give a Cash App or Super Chat to the Black Man Unfiltered Network, certainly you can go in and do that. Certainly scrolling at the bottom of the screen. The Cash App is Black Man Unfiltered. And like I say, you can drop a Cash App, a Super Chat to the show. And anything that you want to give to us personally, certainly our Super Chats are scrolling at the bottom of the screen. And, so again, we appreciate you guys being with us. Make sure also hop over to Sparta HQ Network and, show some love there as well. It really helps the algorithm as that channel is about to go certainly get monetized as well. Looking forward to that. Very excited. A lot of work's gone into that. So, but Father's Day for me, pretty productive. I spent the whole afternoon doing landscaping. So I didn't feel like going out with the kids or anything like that. So it was just a lot of landscaping. I burned about 2,800 calories. I got my Fit app here on my watch. So I burnt 2,800 calories with a steady heart rate of about 137. So, definitely, I can understand why you don't have a lot of obese guys who do that kind of work because, you will spend a lot of and burn a lot of calories and energy in doing that kind of work, especially if you're doing rock. So I'm doing rock landscaping. So, certainly all those shovel strokes and whatnot, I feel like I'm training like in Rocky 5 or something like that, really old school type of
It's funny because my girlfriend and me, she's a big country fan, and I see the culture now and how they work and everything. And those guys work their ass off. Definitely the ranchers. If you're, there's no money in ranching, but it's definitely a eye waking how much work they have to put in.
Absolutely, no question. But yeah, certainly very productive time. But my wife, she did make my favorite meal. She made me some oxtails, and so after this show, I'm gonna go and dine on that. And she also promised me a back rub afterwards. So definitely looking forward to the show afterwards. After this show,
the other way around.
I'm the one who put the labor in. So yeah, so she's giving me the back rub, but I appreciate that. But certainly appreciate you guys stopping on through tonight. Thanks for your comments, and all we ask is just again keep the chat clean. Certainly you can be as expressive as you want to be, but certainly keep it clean. But we got my man here all the way from Russia. Good to have you here with us certainly this evening. But yeah, we're going to get into this topic tonight. Talk about cancel culture. Obviously, it's a big topic that's certainly come up in the last few years. And I know we've even talked about it, broached the subject in other streams, certainly on the Sparta Network, and we decided to bring that conversation here. And I'm one, as you see from my hashtag, I generally think it's a value add to the culture and to the society in general. But again, there's always abuses, there's always extremes that go too far. But I'm kind of pro cancel culture. I've never really had a problem with it. But what's your initial take on cancel culture? Why do you like it? Do you love it? Hate it? What's your view?
For the longest time, I was against it because people abused it. But after we had the cancel culture show on the Spartan Q Network, I changed my eye view on it. It is
Okay.
necessary if you cannot, if you use it responsibly. If you just cancel this, cancel that, just blab a shit out thinking why you're canceling a culture. I'm not cool with that. If you're like saying I'm canceling Nikes for X, Y reason because I feel they're racist or whatever. Yeah, I can't support that. If you cancel something because you just don't like it for no reason, yeah, I can't get behind that. I'm a 50-50 mix on that. I think it is, we could use it if you use responsibly and correct like anything else in life.
Gotcha. So you're 50-50 on it. All right.
Right.
And certainly for those in the chat tonight, certainly like to get your feedback on that. Where do you, as a percentage, what do you come down on cancel culture? Are you 50-50 for it? You hate it? I'm kind of like an 85-90%, to be honest with you. Certainly in terms of its and certainly in terms of its use. I think cancel culture is a major portion, I think, of democracy. I think it's what, to me, it's one of three pillars of power that belong to people and to citizens. I think one is voting. And again, whether you believe in voting or not, it's an access, it's something available to you. Whether you think voting is effective or not, whether you think everything is bought up or not, I think it's still a tool that for the masses to use to voice certainly their views and opinions on what's going on in society. So I think voting's one. I think the right of peaceful protest, and like I said, peaceful protests, no vandalism, no breaking stuff, no destroying of stuff. Not cool with that at all. But certainly, the ability to protest and cancel culture kind of, for me, it kind of sits in the middle. It's a form of protest. It's a form of politics. It's a form of voicing your pleasure or displeasure at whatever, whether it be a business or a person. It's the right of the people. And so I
Here's
want people to have more freedom and rights, not less. But go
here's
ahead.
where I kind of have a little issue. We always talk about the freedom of speech, but is speech free? Is it really, or is there a price to pay what you say out there?
Well, I think the two things can be right at the same time. It absolutely is free. But what I find interesting, and the thing that's kind of hypocritical for some people, I'll just kind of come out and say it. We've seen a lot of people certainly in YouTube and other spaces, from the Jordan Petersons of the world or whoever the influencer are. The biggest complaint they have about the society is that no one's held accountable for anything. But as soon as somebody comes up with, a cancel culture or a protest or vote or whatever to hold them accountable, then they're against it. So more times than not, it's not about whether a person gets canceled or not. It's about the position that they're taking and whether or not that kind of vibes or disagrees with your own. And to me, that's where the problem is. But for all these people talk about where's the accountability, and I'm like, okay, you certainly have the right to say whatever you want to say, but there's always going to be consequences to what you say. We learned that since we were kids. But now we're adults, and somehow we want to be void of consequences. So so that, like I said, I'm much more, again, I'd rather have it than not. And there's societies in this world where, again, you don't have those rights, but I'm glad to live in a society that does. And I think certainly for the person who's going to speak or advocate or with anything, I think you have to be mindful of what you say or be willing to pay the consequences of your actions or what you say. I think that's an adult. I think that's reasonable in any society, any free society. So yeah, say what you want, but don't get upset when people are upset at what you said and act accordingly or act in a way that's not to your benefit. So my thing to people is, do you want to be an adult or not? But it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. And I'm especially from a lot of these people who are talking about morality and values and accountability and this and that or whatever. They don't want those rules sometimes to apply to them. And that's like my biggest gripe with for a lot of those people is that again, it's all about what whether or not people agree with your vibe, not necessarily the practice in and of itself. So I think there's a little hypocrisy there when people who get so outspoken against cancel culture. When again, it's a way that people have to keep others accountable, whether you agree with it or not or whatever. It's still there. So absolutely, you have a right to free speech, but for free speech without consequences. As they say, you can't yell fire in a movie theater. I think that's one of the legal arguments I've heard at certain times or whatever. It's like, yeah, you just can't say anything without consequences to it. So I totally agree that yeah, say what you want, but there's consequences to what you say. Now deal with that.
And that's where I'm going with that. Because if you're responsible, I see this all the time on YouTube. Big YouTubers are getting canceled because of what they say.
Hmm.
Everything you say, even us, is some things that are appropriate to say, and some things are non appropriate to say. If you're responsible, like you said, like an adult, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, yeah, and also keep in mind, YouTube, just like other places, YouTube is a marketplace. Just want to read some comments here again. Josie Wales, 8178. Again, thank you for joining us tonight. Society has a place for people who cannot control their emotions. Better learn how to control your emotions than to have the state do it for you. Yeah, I mostly agree with that. You also can't be a vigilante either. That's not that's not the answer. But again, even vigilantes, at least from what I understand of what a vigilante is, vigilante is someone who operates outside the law. I'm saying that there are lawful ways for which you can express yourself. Like I said, you can vote, you can peacefully protest; those are rights, and you can also decide to patronize or not to patronize someone's business. And so all of those, though, to me, that's not vigilante. Vigilante goes above and beyond or doing things that they're not empowered to do. Cancel culture, I think you are empowered to act and to do on things. So I wouldn't call that person a vigilante because they decide to exercise that. Another comment here, there's also a problem in that you might be dealing with someone who, no matter what you say, can't understand what you're trying to say, and they respond aggressively. I would say that could be true. And again, if that's the price you have to pay for, if that's the price you have to pay for expressing yourself, then so be it. Or you can look at what you're, because a lot of times what we say, it's like it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can express yourself in a way that does get it, work on your speech. I mean, the one thing I'm kind of big on, and not because I'm some prudish person, is just people's language in general. I just think is
Have you met me?
Yeah. But I'm just saying, but I'm just, okay, here we go.
You've reached your limit on talking. Shut the fuck up.
Okay, you can continue now.
I made this point in the past. Again, I'm not so anti-swearing that it's like, I'm not a prude, right? I mean, I go to comedy clubs, I go to, I watch R-rated movies. I mean, it's not so much the swearing.
Comedians we had on both of the channels.
Absolutely.
They are words.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm not anal about swearing per se. But what I am kind of swole about is that you got 250,000 words in the English language. And I know too many people where half their vocabulary is 7 words. It's like, I mean, can you find a way? And the thing about it is, what really bothers me is when person says that, oh, I'm being real, or I'm keeping it authentic, as if to say profanity is authentic or real. And I'm like, it's neither one of those things. You can lie and profane. My thing is what you're saying truthful? Is it fact-based? Is it honest? And if it is, then you can use language, profanity or not profanity. But for some people, it's like you think that because you profane, it's like you make it better somehow.
So being real to me is not being, using curse words and profanity. Being real is being the most honest person out there, blunt. In other words, you can be blunt and not curse. Very simple. I've done it. When I'm not at work, because I gotta be more professional there. But when it's just this or hanging out with my guys or my girl, I'm like, this comes off. When I'm back in the house or the kitchen, I'm cursing like Ryan, like a fucking sailor. Fuck that shit. But I don't need to get my point across.
Right.
Even when I'm talking to my employees, I don't curse at them.
Mm-hmm.
I make that sure it's clean. But they would tell you, I am the most bluntest and honestest person you're ever going to meet. And you know that personally about me, Paul.
Yeah.
And like, I don't hold back.
Right. And that's one of the things I love about you. So it's like I said, it's not a jab at any particular person. But I'm just saying, when people think that in certain spaces, like I said, you get to say anything that you want. I mean, like I'm obviously I'm older here. There were some standards in terms of what you said in certain situations. You never swore in front of kids. You never swore in front of women, and you never swore in front of old people.
That's actually
that was just like standard. Like we just didn't do that.
Even
and
to this
now
day,
it's like everybody's doing it. So it's like, my thing is like, where's the effect? If everybody swears, you got 6-year-olds swearing. If everybody swears, then what's the effect of swearing or using profanity?
The one thing I would definitely say, like I told you earlier, and you know very well, my girlfriend's big into the country culture, and the country culture will not curse in front of kids or in front of women. That is one thing they take very sacred. Like they still literally, if they walk past a woman, they take their hats off, all the old school stuff that we remember. I'm looking like, is that a time travel? Like, like I looked around, like I feel like out of place. And my girl looked at me like, this is normal country culture. So that is still a thing now these days. But rare. It's not common. Yeah. It's very rare.
And you don't hear it in their music, at least most. I don't know about now.
I have listened to current music.
Like country music, like generally, you didn't hear a lot of swearing in country. I don't know where it is now.
The only person that I heard swear, it was one word in the whole song was J-Roll. Excuse me. Most country, that's why we are only allowed to was allowed to say because it's right now on a band music at work, but we were only allowed to play country music because it was clean. It was nothing, and country music has a story behind it. If you listen to the lyrics, it's literally telling you a story in those 3 to 4 minutes in that song, maybe 5 sometimes. But cursing is rare, very rare. Every 100 songs, you might have one song, maybe 1 or 2 words maximum. That's it.
Right. Just want to entertain this. I got to think about this one. Do you think SOB is a slur on Jesus? I don't know. I gotta give that. I gotta give that with some thought. But thanks for the question. That's the first time I've heard.
I personally would say no to that.
Right.
What I think is more a slur to Jesus Christ is when you say, "God damn it," for example. You know what I'm saying? That is more a curse to God personally. That's how I look at it always.
Right. But that says I think many people falsely believe that that they have a truth separate from truth, which is hard to flesh out sometimes. Certainly to show the person. Certainly I'll just throwing it out there as clean. So there is only one truth that's absolute, and it's not subjective. Certainly, thanks. Appreciate that, and certainly BMU. How the tables have turned. That the kids are cursing more than their parents. Yeah, but it's.
That's facts.
But I think that started with the parents too, right?
And also,
you would never I was growing up. I would never listen to even if I had rap, even if I had rap in the car. Like I would never listen to hardcore rap in my car when my kids were in the car. That just didn't happen. I mean, but
that's where I was going with this now.
Yeah, because
I remember in the 90s, and my dad didn't allow this at all. Like he said to me once, if you're gonna pick music, pick decent music. Anything with cursing is not worth your time listening to. I never understood that back then because I was a punk kid. You know what I'm saying? Now that I look back at him saying that, I'm like, he was kind of right. Do you really need to curse in every song? Do you need to curse every other word? Like, it's overdone at this point.
Right. Yeah, I just think, I think it's kind of lost its impact or effect. But again, if you want to go back to the subject of cancel culture, If you want to use it, then go ahead, but don't be upset when people rebel. I've always said that I think swearing, especially in YouTube, I don't think that's productive. Because, like, think about it. I mean, I might be vibing with your content. Like, you may have some good substantive content, whether it be sports or societal issues or politics or whatever. And I may agree with what you're saying, but again, if I have a kid with me, I'm trying to listen to you in a car, but I got my kids. But if you're swearing every other word, then I may not be comfortable playing you in my car because I don't want my kids listening to that. So I mean, again, I don't see how in anything in mark unless you are, like I said, like an R-rated film or like I said, a comedy club or something where you're trying to be outlandish or there's violence or extreme or something like that, and whatever the subject matter is. Okay, I get that, but just in everyday parlance, like how does profanity help you out in terms of growing your channel or your network? Like I've never heard anybody say, "Oh, I'm not listening to that person anymore because they don't swear enough." Like I never heard that. It's like, is your content good or is it not? And my thing is, I always want to attract people, then turn people off. So I want Christians watching me. I want atheists watching me. I want everybody. I mean, I don't want to turn anybody away, which goes to one of the points I'm making about business. I think for a lot of businesses, I think they've gotten off message when it comes to business. Because more times than not, again, the main thing in business is profit. And you want to be able to attract as many customers as you can to your business. And when you decide to do things that could potentially hurt the bottom line of your business, then I have no empathy for you. If people decide to cancel you because you say something either in, like said, a song or on YouTube, or you say something offensive and that turns people off, they have every right to go somewhere else. In fact, it's interesting because a lot of those same people would say, well, if you don't like my content, then leave. Don't watch me. And then guess what? People don't watch. And then you complain that you got canceled. It's like, again, you cannot have it both ways. So I think when it comes to if you're in a position where again you want to attract people to you as a business, you want customers, you want watchers, you want viewers, you want subscriptions, you want all that. You want to be as certainly authentic to what it is that you're offering. If I'm selling a product, then I'm going to focus on the product, not necessarily what my political views are or who I voted for or my personal opinions on things. It's got nothing to do with the business. And I'm not one of those people that's going to mess up the bag because I need to say. But if I do decide that because of my influence, because of my success, because I have an audience, because I have whatever, if I do decide to step out, then I'm also saying I'm willing to deal with the consequences of whatever that is. Now, the thing about it as well is some people might be attracted to that. I might get customers that I didn't expect I would get because I spoke out, but then I may lose some people as well. Again, as long as people are willing to accept the consequences of their actions, I have no problem with people getting canceled. It goes with the territory. And so whether you're an athlete who decides to speak up, again, some people are going to accept what you say, like you for what you say, and hate you and say, look, I'm not following a guy. So be it.
Yeah, I have a list here. Several YouTubers who got canceled. All right. And there's a similar equation here. Most of these guys got canceled because of racist comments.
Mhm.
So Sean Dwayson, according to his report, he was canceled because of racist comments and racial jokes. Jennifer Starr, racial accusations and racial feuds with people. you can't do that, on this kind of field. And YouTube is very strict on those policies when you sign up for your channel. And now in China, on your your what's the word I'm looking up? Just your Gmail account, and it's very strict about that. James Charlin, something like that. He got canceled mostly for his a major political views. Guess he was very politic on his channel.
Yeah.
David Doink. Doink, really? That's a weird fucking name. He was what says here too? Involved with a accusation and unsafe standard. Logan Paul actually got canceled. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, according here is Paul
Over
over a Japanese acknowledgement of force. So something about, he might be got into it or somebody like that. I know he was on the edge of getting canceled because I know a lot of his stuff he said. Like I'm questioning, like, how did you still have same with what's his name? The UFC guy who's always has a podcast. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, Chael Sonnen?
No. He's not a UFC fighter. He's a UFC announcer. Man, I can't remember his name right now. He's a big pothead too. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I know Joe Rogan. Honestly, I don't
Joe
follow
Rogan. There you go, Joe Rogan.
Well, he's not
like question me.
Well, he's not. He's doing very well. He's got that Spotify deal, so I don't think he's getting canceled anytime. I don't think he's getting canceled anytime soon. But he's certainly very, certainly very outspoken on certain things. And I know he's very outspoken during the pandemic. He was outspoken in terms of his political positions. So again, that's fine. Like I said, I'm not trying to say to anybody that you have to, put a limit on what you say. Say what you want.
Absolutely.
But don't complain when people stop patronizing your business. Or if something gets found out about your business that you're doing things that are deceptive or would have you, they understand maybe how your business was founded or where you made your money initially, whatever, and people decides to make a change. It's like, I no longer want to support this. That is totally fine. So I like I said, for me, cancel culture, for me, the biggest example of cancel culture was the 60s. Someone said civil rights was in the 1960s. Again, the whole thing with Rosa Parks and that bus boycott that was led, in that situation. I understand there was another person who was certainly also discriminated against that people don't hear of because of that. But again, people mobilized. The first rideshare businesses really got started in that process. Instead of taking a bus, people decided to do car sharing, carpooling. That was the first time you had rideshare back then. I got no problem with that. So again, I think that it is a political, it is a social instrument of the people. And just like anything else, you have to politic for it. So again, one person can't get you canceled. If that person decides that, you know what, this person needs to be canceled, so they're going to start a campaign and they're going to rally a bunch of people, it's like anything else. You got to go in politic for your positions and win people over to your side. So just like there's political elections where you have to convince people to vote for you, you got to convince people to ride with you. If you say, look, we're leading a campaign, we want to cancel this person because of X, Y, and Z. That's a decision that I make. I may say, no, I don't think that person needs to be canceled. Sorry, I'm not signing up for your petition or for your, whatever poll that you're raising or fundraiser to get someone off the air. I may not agree with agree with the position. And so look, you don't have me as a voter. I mean, that which is essentially what it is. So at the end of the day, it's all politics at the end of the day. But that's the market. I like I said, I would rather be in a society where you have that right to do those things than be in a society that limits free speech, that really limits free speech to the point where you can be imprisoned or worse because of what you say. Give me the liberal democracy where the left and the right have certainly used their capital to cancel certain campaigns or business. Remember the whole Bud Light thing that came out a few years ago? They had the trans person in the Bud Light ads.
I don't remember it. I remember hearing about it. I remember watching it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it was like a big blow up, and people were just not having it. And I think Budweiser, I think they lost like 25% of their Bud Light sales or something like that because of the the protest. So look, they took a risk. Maybe they were trying to appeal to a business. They thought that, okay, well, maybe we can expand our business to a greater extent. You had, for example, even recently, MLB. There was a situation a few days ago where I think this is, I guess, Pride Month, and I think it was the San Francisco Giants. I think Black Man Unfiltered. I think he had a Friday show where they were talking about that. Where I think San Francisco Giants decided to cancel their Pride Night. And Pride Night is basically an MLB. They designate like one game a year where people can come out from that LGBTQ community. I'm not going to say all the acronyms to it, but they can come out or whatnot. And it's supposed to be like an inclusive thing. And San Francisco decided, that I guess they weren't doing it. And you had all these people like, yay, some people were like, yay, good for San Francisco. And some people were like, okay, that's how you feel about us or whatever, then we won't patronize you. Again, they made a business decision. Now, whether or not that decision is going to be, hurt their bottom line or not, we got to see. But all 32 teams, out of all the 32, I think they were the only ones that did not have their Pride Night. That's fine.
Listen,
we'll see what the numbers are. We'll see what the numbers are like.
Like, you cannot be a part of something because it's against your belief. That's fine, but you still have to respect the people's rights. End of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want to celebrate something that you're against, you don't have to be a part of it. Don't turn this game on. Don't do anything. Just keep it alone and keep moving forward. And does it really bother you everyday life? Probably not. It's on TV. How can it bother you? And it may bother the people who live in that area, but most people, it doesn't bother them because they're watching on TV. So if you're against the pride thing or whatever, just live and live in peace, like you live in peace. That's what they want in there, most of these people. Again, I do understand there's some extremists too who try to shove this down your throat, and I'm against that. But if they leave me alone, I'll leave them alone. I'm cool with it. What do you think, Paul?
Generally, I agree with that. If you're cool with it, I'm cool with it. But again, I'm cool either way. If you decide to step out, again, whatever consequences come your way. Again, I don't believe in violence. I don't think people should be intimidated. I don't think people should be, assault, any kind of thing like that. I'm not down with. And so, whatever the rights that the society gives you, I'm all about. Again, this is about upholding the law. And people have a right to protest or to march or to do anything that they want to within the bounds of the law. And so that right that protects them also protects me.
Correct.
So again, I just kind of leave that alone. But when people just try to, enter anything that tries to interrupt that. Now, again, there was something, I know BMU, he did something. There was, I think it was a barbershop a few years ago. I think there was this protest in, I think it was like either New Zealand or Australia or something, where you had like, those guys, those athletes that do that haka dance before games, like that.
New Zealand dance or whatever. I think, is it?
It's all that kind of that Pacific. The
warrior dance. I know that, sure.
Yeah, that warrior dance or whatever. So basically, you had this guy who had this church. So I guess there was some pride event that was going on, like a parade or something that was going on in that country or something. And these guys decided that they were going to show up there and to kind of disrupt and interrupt the protest, because obviously they were against what they were doing. And they decided to do their haka dance or whatever in the middle of the parade or whatever to prevent the thing from going forward. And I'm like, and we discussed that. And whether or not I agree with either position or not is not the point. For me, again, they obtained a license to be able to have their day. It's within their laws that was accepted for them to have their day. And I think they should have had a right to do what they did. Now, for the people who decide to interrupt, I'm not cool with that, regardless of what the positions are. You don't have a right to disrupt someone's peaceful protest or celebration or whatever that is. If you want to have your own day, you go through the process just like anybody else. You go and apply for a license and you have your day and speak out against what you want and all that kind of stuff. And nobody has a right to stop you from doing what you're doing.
And I totally agree with that. And like when they apply for the permit for the Greek Independence Day in New York City, the parade, they all have to go through their license. They do one in Philly too, and some other states.
Yeah, and you know, I just found out.
Work for anybody.
Yeah,
and like I know a bunch of African Americans who live in Greece. They're, speak better Greek than me. Believe it or not, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Like Yanni, he's a big basketball player in Greece. You know who I'm talking
for the
about.
National team, absolutely.
Very respectful gentleman, very respectful. Anything I've heard about him on the news, anything, you don't hear one bad thing about the guy because he's respectful. Now,
absolutely.
Behind closed door, he might say, "You know what? Fuck you." He might be saying that, but it doesn't bother him because behind his closed doors, his privacy. What happens to your home is your business. But once you step out these doors, it becomes everybody's business. When you put it on air like this, it becomes everybody's business.
Right.
You know the old saying, what's on the internet always stays on the internet? It's true.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The old saying, when it goes on the internet, it always stays on the internet?
Yeah.
That's kind of true if you think about it.
Yeah.
So watch
at least before it's taken down. They could be taken down, but if you grab it before it's taken down, I know a lot of people they'll hit a tweet and to delete it, but someone captured the tweet before it got deleted. So again, that can happen as well. But
but most times it's been already passed through multiple people by the time it gets to the point you delete it, because it takes literally like that to pass it through. It takes a couple steps to delete a post.
Right. But I'm just saying, it can certainly stay up there for longer, but not because what you did. So again, other people can take it. I want to acknowledge just real quick before we go on. Liberty Twitcher. Again, always a pleasure to have you in the building. What if the protest isn't people? Is it okay to damage public property and make your point? Absolutely not.
No.
And I let off the show. I don't know if you were here earlier. I am totally 100% against violence, against a destruction of property. Again, peaceful protest, I am all for. When it becomes unpeaceful, I am totally against it. That is not cancel culture. That is not a right that people have to do. And I'm totally, regardless of who does it, it's not regardless of your political position or what party you belong to or whatever. That's a no-no for me. And so, I'll criticize anyone who goes out and does things that damages property or people or prevent people from their peaceful protest. Like I said, I was just saying, I don't like it when someone's protest, so you have a right to a march or whatever it is, and that gets interrupted by people who want to violate people's rights to have their protest. I think, again, if you want to have your protest, get in line like everybody else did, get your permits, have your parade, have your march, do whatever you want. But no, absolutely, no one has a right to violence. And, I don't think certainly that's, and if anyone wants to associate that with cancel culture, I think it's a misapplication certainly in my view. But
and it goes back to my original statement. If you use it respectfully, I'm cool with it. But when you start damaging and breaking things, no, I'm not cool with it. If that was my business, you come in breaking things, I'm grabbing what I got in the back there and defending my property. I don't care what it is. If it's from a golf club or a chair or whatever I have in my hands, I'm defending my property. You better get off my fucking land.
Absolutely. Again, Liberty Twitch asks a question again. What if they start looting during the protest? Absolutely not. And I want to meet the person who says that's cool, to be honest with you, because I haven't met one who is okay with that personally, but I would certainly want to know.
What's funny about that, Paul? The people who do that won't come out and say, "Yeah, let's do that's cool, man. Come on." And like the purge, they won't come out and say that in public. But when shit hits the fan and shit happens, they're the first ones in line, like with bats and stuff to start breaking people's stores and stealing stuff. That's not cool. I don't care, bro. Look what happened after the baseball game that won the other day. They were New York was on fire, pretty much almost. They're destroying everything.
You're talking about the Knicks? The Knicks.
Yeah.
Winning. Yeah, there was a lot of arrests. Again, there were. I mean, you had fans, San Antonio fans getting. I think that first game in New York. You had San Antonio fans getting harassed. San Antonio fans getting assaulted. Yeah, those people should be arrested. It was like 13 arrests that night. I think 26 in total.
That's it.
13 were like were criminally charged out of the 20 something people who got arrested that night in New York. Absolutely. And so, again, have your fun. Yes, you won. But again, when you start, anytime you have one of these celebrations, cars getting flipped over, cars getting
That's a new
turned,
thing
getting
lately.
burned.
That's a new thing the last couple of years. If it started with the Eagles' first Super Bowl, they won, and they literally trashed Philly completely. Then the second one, it was like that's where the trend started. I think again, I don't have it paperwork or documentation to prove that, but I feel in the last couple of years, if I had a point of interest, I would say when the Eagles won the first Super Bowl, that's where all this shit could start. People flipping things and everything like that. Philly's already trashed. You just destroyed it completely. I remember, World Series in New York, Stanley Cups winning in New York. Nobody ever trashed New York. It was always a fun, happy parade afterwards. Yeah. Now, you better bring your armor. Bring your armor because you're going to need it. And that's not cool because people pay for those cars, pay for the property. Somebody has to pay for all the damages in the what's called it in the middle of the street. If you rip light posts, stop signs, all that stuff, somebody has to go out there and fix that and repay that. Somebody has to pay labor to do that, and that's where your taxes are so high usually.
Yeah, absolutely. But question for you, because I know you said early on you're kind of 50-50 on whether or not you're with cancel culture or not. Can you give me a specific example of somebody who got canceled and you thought it was totally egregious, or it was just a misrepresentation, or it just went too far? Because, like I said, I haven't seen a ton of those where a person's been like, just wrongfully. Because more times than not, what tends to happen, in my view, is people are afraid to oftentimes admit that they made a mistake or at least catch it early. And more times than not, what I people see doing is like doubling down on what they're saying because they don't want to look weak or whatever it is. And they just kind of, again, they get themselves under the hole, and rather than just coming up just like, what, my bad, they just keep digging. But do you have an example of somebody or situation where someone got canceled improperly? Because, like I said, generally I'm pro cancel culture in general, but something where I can look at that and say, okay, yeah, that was kind of messed up that they got canceled for that.
He almost got canceled because he made a comment. And
who's this?
I'm sorry?
Who's this?
I'm about to say it right now. Do you remember Maven, the wrestler?
Yeah.
Okay, he has his own YouTube channel, very, very successful YouTube channel. It was like 2-3 years ago. He made a comment. I think, if I remember correctly, he said he probably deserved it because it was too stiff or something like that. And the next day, he posted a video apologizing because he was getting roasted in the comments way too bad, saying, how could you say that? And it was not like he deserved to get his, it was a receipt, or from you guys who don't watch wrestling, receipt is when you get hit, you return to hit back, blow for blow kind of thing. And the one guy was being too stiff, and he gave the guy the receipt, and he maybe turn around. He probably did deserve that a little bit if he was work with the guy a little better. I personally didn't think an issue with it, but people did. So I think there was a little bit overboard on that. It was a couple of occasions he had apologized for a couple of statements he made, and all these statements, I didn't think that there were issues with it. People sometimes take it a little bit too sensitive. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Certainly. But again, people may misinterpret what he was trying to say.
Absolutely.
And I guess, and again, and sometimes in the cleanup, again, choose your words wisely. Or not. Now, one thing that Liberty Twitcher is bringing up, and I don't think this is a function of cancel culture. So we talked about, again, scientists said that the pandemic lockouts were a bad idea, even though they were based on their opinion on science. And it says the White House calls Facebook and others to cancel those scientists. Now, again, this for me gets into an area that goes a little too far. When you have governmental entities, like I said, I think cancel culture is mostly a function of the people to take action in terms of where they choose to spend their dollars or who they decide to patronize. But when you have entities, government entities, that try to manipulate information, now you're getting into propaganda. Now you're getting into, state messages. That is not, to me, that is not what cancel culture is. So again, that is something I think all of us need to be mindful of when a government starts to. Hey, Josie, again, appreciate you being alive. I seem like you were in a lively discussion tonight with a whole lot of people. But again, appreciate you. I appreciate you certainly coming on. Come on back later on. But yes, again, abuse of government power. That is not cancel culture. That is exactly what it is. It is government abuse. That is state-sponsored TV. And regardless of who does it, whether it be a liberal, Republican, whoever's in office, when you use the power of the office to try to censor, again, I'm very concerned about, again, I'm not, not trying to get overly political tonight, but again, when you have government entities trying to use the FCC to censor speech, I'm nervous about that. Whether or not you decide to watch somebody or switch off from somebody because you didn't like what they said, go ahead and do that. If you lose ratings because of that, I got no problem. That is perfect. But you try to get the FCC to try to do something like that, now that's going too far with me. Because you're talking about the entities who have absolute control over whether or not your stuff can be seen or not.
I agree with you 100%. That's why I'm laughing right now.
And that is really that is yeah.
Because
so that's yeah.
Like Liberty Twitch said, is the abuse of government power. Absolutely. Like, these journalists and press, well, at one point they weren't scared what to say on air. Obviously, to a certain limit. You can't be like, fuck that, no, nothing like that. But it was more like, listen, I think he shouldn't be in office because of my personal reasons. This, or, you gotta watch what you watch. You gotta be careful what you watch on the news now, is because a lot of it is corrupted. You have some channels that are more in favor of which politicians and all that stuff. Yeah, unfortunately, the news is not what the news used to be. I think we're both going to agree that.
Well, again, I think part of it is, again, the independence of news. I mean, the fact that you have a lot of these corporations and these mergers that are going on, where you have these big conglomerates that are buying up all these media companies, who are also trying to garner favor with political influence. Again, I think that's a problem. I mean, I almost think that journalism in general, or news, we talk about the three branches of government, right? Executive, judicial, and legislative. I almost think the press should almost be their own entity, like just completely independent of everything, like a fourth estate. And I know we have the freedom of the press as one of the amendments in the Constitution. But again, the fact that these corporations are buying, and we even see it, right? We see like 60 Minutes used to be like the gold standard when it came to news programs that went in depth on stories and whatnot, and for the longest time. But now you've seen there's been shakeups there. You got people leaving the show because they're trying to have more stories that are quote unquote nicer to the president. I mean, who cares whether you're nice to the president or not? Is what you're reporting on, is it factually accurate or not? Which is supposed to be what news is supposed to be about. News is supposed to be about sensationalism or leaning on one side or another. It's supposed to be, again, fair and unbiased. And yeah, you certainly got channels. I mean, certainly, people talk about the liberal news, and then you had Fox or whatever had to come in and get the other perspective news or whatever. But what happened to just news? I still remember growing up watching like Walter Cronkite or these other guys on TV who would kind of give it to you straight. You're in an interview with them. They're going to give you tough questions. They're not going to give you softballs ahead of time. They're not going to say, okay, we're not going to answer that. It's like, look, you either answer the questions or we end the interview. To me, that's what journalism is. Now you have it where everybody's trying to be a journalist. And I'm sorry, I still think there is a role for real journalism. There's principles and ethics in journalism. Just because you post something on YouTube or Facebook or any other social media does not make you a journalist. But you got all these people who are putting stuff out there, like, you know, and it's sad to me that you have all these people who are getting their news. I think a lot of millennials and Zers are getting, like, half of them are getting their news off of social media.
They do.
Now, I'm not saying whether or not I'm not even saying whether or not social media is what's being reported, is it right or not. I'm saying, but traditional journalism, there's a process that you go through. There's editorial review. You have an editor that's got to sign off before you can print this story. They're going to ask you questions. Who are your sources, your backgrounds? How is this verifiable? And if they make a mistake in the story or whatever, they typically come out and apologize. We messed up. We made a mistake in this story.
It happens.
But because the money that's involved, I think even the news has gotten corrupted. And I think it's more about what appeals to an audience versus telling the audience the truth. And that's to me, that's a big problem. And it's no wonder that, you know, people are turning off or going to other sources to get news. But I think we're hurt by the fact that you were going to have like 2 or 3 entities owning all these entities, Paramount and all these companies combining and merging, and all these news organizations falling under the leadership of people who are not even news people. The thing with 60 Minutes is the guy who's running 60 Minutes now isn't even a news person.
And here's one thing you have to also keep in mind, Paul, with in getting your news off the social media. Social media is a business at the end of the day. Let's be honest here. So
that's
and they can control what they want on their business. That's their business. So if it's my business, I can say, hey, I want to put pink ponytails on unicorns and run across my screen. That's my business. I mean, who the hell are you? I'm making money either way. I cannot tell somebody how to run their business. When you sign up for Facebook, YouTube, all this stuff, you hit the little button, you agree to terms and conditions. Bet you 10 people out of 1 doesn't even read that shit.
Mm-hmm.
So don't be mad when they tell you can't do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. Liberty says, is 60 Minutes bad now? I don't know. I mean, I go in and out and watch the 60 Minutes depending on what the subject is. I just know that there were stories that were supposed to come out, but the stories got pulled of certain reasons or whatever. Again, there's a lot of oversight on it that all they didn't have before. And again, a lot of people are leaving because, again, they're doing things in a way that hasn't been done before. Is that good or bad? We'll have to see. But, but I hope I'm not. I hope I'm not trying to say, like, you're using the liberal line instead of finding out the facts. I hope I'm not. But I'm just looking at the people who left, the reporting that's been on 60 Minutes in terms of its leadership and how things have been done. Things are certainly different. Is it better content than before, or are they as legit? But again, I think certainly there have been interactions, certainly with this current administration, and they decide to change course as a result of it. Now, whether or not you think it's good or bad, if you think they're trying to appease or to appeal to this administration, is that good or bad or not? When does that become abuse of power? Just like, again, with the FCC trying to get people canceled or thrown off the air. I think none of those things are good. I think generally the press should be free to do and to report news as they see it. And then it's up to the individuals that they're reporting on to demonstrate or prove whether or not the story is right or not. That's up to them. But I don't think anybody should be. I don't think anybody should be curtailed because of that.
I watch episode here and there. Depends on the episode. Sometimes there's really good. Some of them are like, oh god, this sucks. And they know. And back in the day, 60 Minutes was always every week. You got a good show coming on that. Now it's hit and miss. Personally, that's my personal opinion. And if that answers for anybody, that's take it with a grain of salt if you like.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Again, we may agree to disagree, Liberty. I see. I see what you're saying. If you're saying that's coming from a liberal perspective, give me the other one. If you got a source or link to something else, I'm willing to watch. If or someone who's been reporting on what's been happening with 60 Minutes, that's coming from another source. If you think it's more credible, post a link in the chat or whatever, or send me information. I'll be willing to watch it. Like I said, I'm not trying to make an assumption one way or the other, but give me what you got if you got something. Put it out there. But again, appreciate you being here. But look, fast first before parroting someone else's serving opinion. Again, we all get our information from other sources. So again, you're saying for facts first, you're getting it from somewhere. A lot of it depends on where you're getting your information from. So, and then we all have to be mindful of that, regardless of where we get the source from. But again, if you have an alternate one, give it to me and I'll check it out. Absolutely. But again, topic tonight, certainly, I know I saw the chat that was it's been very interactive tonight.
Yeah,
I didn't want to waste a lot of time censoring the chat tonight and trying to block people or whatever. I think some people are kind of out of pocket with some stuff or whatever. And we typically try to keep a respectful chat, certainly voice your opinions and views or whatever, but it got into a lot of stuff that we weren't even talking about. So I don't know, you guys, if you guys have some some things from another source or whatever, then so be it. But, again, try to be respectful in the chat. Agree, disagree, all that stuff is fine. But again, keep it respectful in the chat. That's all we ask for. I don't want to spend half the show trying to monitor the chat and put people out or whatnot. I don't want to do that. I just want me and Peter, we just want to have a conversation how we feel on the subject. Peter, so coming into the show, Peter is kind of 50-50 on the use of cancel culture. I'm more 90-10. I think I'm all for it, especially when it's used by the masses, not when it's controlled by corporate entities or government entities or whatever that are leading a campaign against someone else. Certainly, I'm not for that. Abuse of any kind of corporate power or government power, I'm not for. But I think, again, just like voting, just like peaceful protests, I think cancel culture is a tool that is useful for for citizens in terms of where they make their decisions. And then for the individuals who are being canceled, or if you think you might be canceled for what you say, I would simply say be willing to live with your decisions. Because I think there's some people who stand up for things and they're willing to risk it all. Muhammad Ali wanted to stand up because he didn't want to go to the Vietnam War. It was against his religion, right, regardless of what you feel about the Nation of Islam or whatnot. If you think it's a cult or now legit organization or whatever, right? But I'm just saying. But regardless, he decided he lost 3 years of his prime.
Yeah, and that was one of his rights. You cannot stand up and agree, but he saw the outcome in the day. He lost 3 years of good fighting, good title matches or whatever, good boxing.
Right.
Because he believed in something. And I respect he's standing his ground. He believed in something. And I'm not pushing back what he believed. Now, some people called him a coward for doing that or whatever. That's a whole different conversation. I'm a big believer. I'm wearing a military Wooden Warrior Project shirt today. You guys know I'm a big opponent in the military. But the military is not for everybody either. And he could be one of those people who said, listen, this is not for me. Unfortunately, you didn't have that choice back then because the draft wasn't in effect. I'm not mistaken. Correct, Paul?
What's that?
The draft was in effect. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, the draft wasn't affected. Yeah.
Yeah. So back then, you didn't have a choice. You want to go in or not. You're going in. You like it or not. Now, be happy you're in the country that gives you the right to go in or not. Like the country I'm originally from is Greece, and most of you guys know that. But for new guys who don't know that, I'm originally from Greece. The draft is still in effect. You're going in. You like it or not. After you're done high school or college, it depends when it comes first. If you're going to college or not, you're asked the next day. You are getting a letter in the mail, registered and signed. You go to the police station and you do some paperwork, and then a few days later you get another letter and you report to your station. Simple as that.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Greece. From what you know, talk about Greece a little bit when it comes to cancel culture as a again a tool of the people. is that you think is widely practiced there? And again, we did get into a little bit of conversation about the government interference and censorship in terms of what people say and whatnot. Is it as big in Greece as it seems like it's becoming here, or what's the vibe just from your perspective, being a both lived in Greece as well as Greek American, Greek views on this idea of either canceling or censorship or whatever? How does it typically go over there?
So you can say your piece, obviously. Nobody's going to torture you or kill you or whatever. You know what I'm saying? For saying your piece. You know what I'm saying? You have the right of peace. But it's no such thing as cancel culture in Greece. You can say your piece and just move on your day. So that's it. Like say, oh, I agree with, politicians is the biggest thing, or football teams, you know what I'm saying? Soccer for most of you guys don't know that. It's you have your say and that's it. Now, if it comes to soccer, you might get a black eye or two because soccer gets very physical. Greeks don't mess around with soccer. Soccer is that number one thing you don't argue about in coffee shops or on a soccer field because you're probably gonna get jumped. But everything else is free game. You can talk about whatever you want. You don't cancel something because you disagree with it. They think it's like if you hear that in Greece, you're probably going to laugh. To be honest with you.
So someone in Greece, whether it be an entertainer or a sports person or politician, they can say something that might be offensive to another person or whatever, and there's no repercussions for what's said, either certainly by the voters or by the customers or whatever. They just kind of just live with it. It's like, oh, he said it, whatever. I mean,
kind of brush it off and move on with the day. By there might be somebody's talking about it for a week, and then it's done after that. You won't hear about it again. It's a very small period of time people talk about it.
And what about news coverage in Greece? It's not really independent, or is it kind of like, does the state have a lot of control over what people watch, or how's that media work in Greece?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you, if the state or is private run. The stations are obviously privately run, but the airway is government run. You need your permits and all that stuff to run that stuff. So I'm not positive, but if I had to say, I talk on my ass, it's probably privately, because I know other channels that I used to grow up with, they're not near, like Junior TV, for example. It was like this was like Cartoon Network almost in Greece. They got pulled because they didn't have the right permits. So I'm pretty sure it's private owned, government run airlines, if that makes sense. So you can pretty much put anything on the air now in Greece. Is like censorship is so low, it's not even funny. The only thing they put up, like here, a viewer subscriber or rated and premature and stuff like that, they put that on there now. So
okay, but they still allow it, because you said like in Greece, like nudity is in the TV shows, the soap operas and stuff is like nude and all that kind of stuff. So
it's pretty common. It's pretty common. Even now, they kind of cut back now a little bit of it, but not as much. It's still there, but now it's like a warning. This show might have.
But I guess the question would be, why would you think? Because that's almost like a regressive move, right? I mean, here it's like things have gotten more liberal, if you will, in terms of what you can see, what you can say, or whatever.
I know where you're going with this.
But it seems like with Greece, they're going backwards. I mean, if it was like okay in the 80s or the 90s, why all of a sudden they've gotten more conservative?
2 reasons.
Okay.
You want to hear them?
Go.
So the one reason, they wanted to put a American citizen as a president, and they backtracked us multiple times. Second was they had
wait a minute. Go ahead. They wanted to put an American person as president.
Yep, and they did.
Who?
He was I don't remember his name off my head, to be honest with you. He's actually Greek roots, but he grew up.
Oh, but he kind of grew up in America, and they made him.
He grew up. He was born in the States, but he had Greek roots because he go to Greece all the time. He had family, but he knew his life there too. So when he finally retired from here, because he was a CEO of some major company, and those CEOs can retire pretty early. They said, "Hey, you want to be our president?" And he goes, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And he backtracked us on that stuff. And the second reason is they had a politician who came from the States, born in Greece, but raised in New York City, actually. He was like, if you get my idea, he's part of the LGBTQ community, and he backtracked us really bad because in Greece, same-sex marriage wasn't a thing too. Like now they're fighting for that. And the church is up, up arms right now.
Right.
They literally they're going crazy for that now. Like they said, no, we're not doing this.
But I'm still asking about the censorship though, or the, like I said, the warnings on TV and whatnot. Like, why has Greece gone backwards?
The president said so. That president made that law pass.
So he's the one who put it on that you have to show these kind of messages or whatever before.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's still there, just so now it's only a little warning label. That's the only difference.
So who'd have thought though that, I mean, everyone talks about America's on the decline morally and whatnot, but you have these American-born Greek people who are running Greece, or were heads of state in Greece, and they're the ones who are putting on a lot of the policies now on television. That's kind of censoring the TV. So I don't know. When people make that claim that America is in its moral decline, I don't know. It seems like in Greece, some of that morality is going there. You had this earlier comment by someone who said here, canceled by who? By today's morally declining society. But apparently in that case with Greece, you had some guys who went over there.
And if you see his next comment, he also
sent some morality. Yeah, he said, he lives in. He certainly loves the. He loves Greece, or he's loved Greek people, and so yeah. But I but as far as whether or not you want to judge the and it's another thing, I guess, with the whole cancel culture thing. I think even BMU, he had an earlier comment about he doesn't like it when kind of imperfect people are the ones who are doing the canceling. I think I got the gist of what he was saying earlier. I'm going to see if I can pull that.
If that was his statement, I'd agree with it a little bit, to be honest with you.
I don't know if it has anything to do with morality or not, to be honest with you. I mean, I think that when it comes to cancel culture, I think for the most part, it's, so this is the comment that he said earlier. He says, I don't think imperfect people should cancel imperfect people. Now, look, if you want to bring a spiritual aspect of it, the Bible says, do not judge lest you be judged. If that's the kind of, thinking that you're going with there, I can kind of understand that on a, on that level. But again, you're talking about a marketplace of ideas, of opinions, of commerce, where people do have rights to patronize whoever they want to patronize. And yes, all of us are imperfect in certain ways. All of us have skeletons. All of us have sides of us. But if you do something or say something that I don't appreciate, you don't have a right to my business. And that's the thing, as a business person or someone who's thinking about trying to reach other people, you should always, it used to be in business, they always used to say the customer is always right. That was something in business that I heard for years. Customer's always right. It's all about pleasing the customer. The customer's happy, then your business will be your business will do fine. And if the customer's not happy, that's your fault. So again, whether you be the artist who decides to get on stage and say something or become political. You got the New York Knicks, for example. They're supposed to be going to the White House or whatever, and people were, kind of up in arms. Like some people saying, some players may not go. It's like even trips to the White House have become very partisan at this point. Regardless who's in office, if you like the president or don't like the president or whatever, or his policies or whatever, it's like should team. And that started actually in the 70s. I think 1979, if I'm not mistaken, is the first time that teams went to the White House to be acknowledged by the White House. And that was actually, it was two teams, both in Pittsburgh. It was the 1979 Pittsburgh Steelers and Pittsburgh Pirates who won the World Series. The Steelers won the Super Bowl. And President Carter was in office at the time. And that kind of started a tradition where the winners of these to either go to White House. It used to be that you would get a phone call. So for some reason, like they would get, phone in the room or whatever, and the president would get on the phone. That was a big thing captured by the media. It's like, hey, the president's on the phone, and I just want to congratulate you guys on a great win or whatever. But then going to the White House became a thing. And now you have it where the Knicks just won after 53 years. They got their first championship. And now they got this controversy now in terms of you've had players who said some pretty disparaging things about the president. And now they're like, well, okay, well, the team is going, okay, or this player, how many players are going to go and how many are not. And so we got some if I stand corrected here, I thought it was 79, 62 Celtics visited John F. Kennedy. Thank you for that. Thank you for that correction. Appreciate it. And he's got another one here. 1924, Washington Senators visited Calvin Coolidge at the executive residence in 1924. Appreciate the stat.
Don't forget Arnold, who visited the White House with President Bush too.
Who's that?
Arnold Schwarzenegger. Remember when he saw
I think he wasn't he council. He's on the council for physical fitness. I think that was under
originally he visited. Then he became a council. It was first he visited because he was the most popular, workout guy in the market at the time, and then they put that on next.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And it says the tradition of sports teams visiting the White House has begun in 1865. President Andrew Johnson hosted 2 amateur baseball clubs, the Brooklyn Atlantics and the Washington Nationals. Again, appreciate the information and clarification. Appreciate that. But certainly today, it's like it's always a conversation. Like before, it was like it was never a question. It's like, yeah, you're going to see the president. Now it's like depending on who's in office, some players decide to go, some players not to go, or some teams decide not to go. So it's a constant thing. But how you are judged. Or are you going to be canceled by someone because they decide that they want, they either want to speak out against somebody or be for it? Then you get all these labels assigned to you, where it might be just you just want to see the president because, again, he's the president of the United States. And certainly people can cancel you because of that. Now, again, in those kind of situations, you can say, well, is that fair? But I don't know if it's fair or not. I mean, there's certain situations you feel like it's kind of like it's a no-win situation. So in that case, then I think you have to go with, again, what your values are. And if your values is such where, again, I respect the office, so I'm going to see the president regardless of who that president is. And some people thinking I cannot, see or visit this president or his administration because of the policies that they have that go against my values, and therefore I will not go. And then deal with the repercussions of that. Again, in cancel culture, a lot of times you may get canceled by the masses, but you may still have a loyal following that because you took a stance or stand for something. Those people may not be as many, but those people are going to be loyal to you like for life. And so, again, you got to make a trade-off in terms of, is my conscience clear from the decision that I made? Or are you in the business of, again, attracting more views, more clients, more customers, more profits? And if it's all about the profit margin, I know some people, they change their positions, like, depending on how the wind blows. Because they're always looking at, again, what's going to put me in the best position to, again, stay above, to stay relevant and to stay profitable. And some people don't have morals or values at all. So to the earlier question about, again, imperfect people, judging or canceling imperfect people, it's still a choice at the end of the day. So I can't, you may not, certainly like those circumstances or people. You can always point the finger and say, well, we'll look at this person, look at that person, or whatever. Why do we honor certain people? And why? I'm actually in the business now where I don't honor anybody. I think we talked about that on one of your shows. Like there's like a lot of people we talked about like I don't wear, for example, people like faces on my, people like famous people. Like I don't wear people's faces on my, like on a T-shirt or something. Like I don't do that anymore. I seldom do jerseys of famous people or players anymore, because as much as I may respect what that person did, like either in their sport or what have you, I don't necessarily know them as a person. And sometimes what happens is the more you find out about a person and their lifestyle or whatever that was outside of it, it becomes displeasing. So, like, for example, like Muhammad Ali, you can certainly appreciate his boxing skill. You can appreciate his political position, not going into the draft. You can appreciate him coming back after the 3 years and winning the heavyweight championship and all those things, 3-time heavyweight champion. You can appreciate all those things. You can appreciate his, or not appreciate, because a lot of people hated Ali when he was relevant. He was a very polarizing figure. He was beloved by most Black Americans and most people of color in general. A lot of conservatives and whatnot weren't necessarily feeling him like that. But regardless, you could certainly admire him for that. But for me, in recent years, I don't know, because certainly his wife, his main wife, he's been married several times, but his main wife has been coming out lately, and she's been spilling tea on the type of guy he was. And we all know that he wasn't necessarily the most faithful husband, as much as Nation of Islam talks about, purity and all these kind of things. Him and Elijah Muhammad, no disrespect, but they all kind of had their dalliances with the opposite sex. But then she started talking about stuff that there might have been, domestic, and all this on YouTube. You can go look up his wife on YouTube. She just came out just a few months ago talking, on that. Yeah, he did some things that, again, I don't respect as a man. And while I may appreciate his abilities, I don't need to wear the man's face on my chest.
Now, let me ask you a question, Paul.
I may acknowledge his boxing acumen, but there's certain things I'm not cool with.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another thing too. When we talk about symbols, what do symbols mean in today's culture? And if you use those symbols, could those symbols get you canceled? But before I go on with that, ask your question.
Now, I know you don't wear people's faces. You said you try to avoid at least. But we wear like a wrestling shirt.
I was a big Hulk Hogan fan growing up. I was one of the original Hulkamaniacs. Train, say your prayers, eat your vitamins. I had a Hulkamania shirt. But then you got that footage of him. I guess his daughter was dating a black man or something like that. He had some things to say about that. That was kind of, out of pocket. And, I felt a certain way about it. So I didn't go out saying, oh, you need to cancel Hulk Hogan. I just didn't feel comfortable with the practice anymore. So as much I was into the Hulk Hogan and whatnot, I'm still a wrestling fan. In fact, my daughter and I were going to a Saturday night main event in August at Madison Square Garden. So I'm still appreciate it. But as far as Hulk Hogan, the person, I don't know. That you could say he had a bad period in his life. I think he was divorced from his wife. I watched. Did you watch his documentary?
I'm in the process of watching it right now.
Yeah, so I checked that out and whatnot. He's had a like a lot of these stars and entertainers do. They had a pretty complicated life, and they did some things that were displeasing. Doesn't mean that I don't appreciate their artistry. I just watched a documentary on Earth, Wind, and Fire. So on HBO. And again, Earth, Wind, and Fire, saw them in concert a couple years ago. This documentary, it mostly focused not only so much on the band, but also the founder of the band, Maurice White. And let's just say he was an interesting person.
Mhm.
Came from a real bad background, but found music and artistry and whatnot. But to many of his bandmates, the people who, when he put the band together, he didn't treat them very well. Didn't pay them what they were worth. Didn't pay them the royalties that were owed. And, was dishonest about the state of the band. They were bankrupt most of the time. They were putting on these huge, lavish concerts and productions, but that came at a cost. And they weren't very profitable, and they were barely making money, even though they were winning Grammys and selling platinum albums, all this kind of stuff. They really weren't making the money. But you hear that same story in the music business all the time. You got these great artists, and they wound up broke. Elvis was broke, basically. So, you have these individuals. So, again, what do I make of these individuals who have very complicated lives? And a lot of times you have to compartmentalize to say, look, I appreciate this about the person, but not necessarily that. Again, assuming it's true.
But also, again, I'm not defending him what he said. I mean, it's pretty fucked up what he said. But you also have to remember the year he grew up in, because racism was very common back then too.
Mm-hmm.
Not making excuses. Obviously, he didn't adapt with the times. Obviously, his father was a old school. I remember watching this party, old school Italian. He didn't believe in the wrestling business. He obviously coming. Old school Italians, and 90% of Italians are racist. Let's be straight here. Let's call it ace and ace. Back then, I'm talking about.
Okay,
I'm talking about back then in the 60s. Was it when he was born? Right.
He was born for 50, 52, 54, something like that.
Oh, in the 50s. Okay, so that was very common back then. I have talked to a lot of people, and the stories I've heard, I'm like, you guys did that back then? He goes, yeah, it was common.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying it's right, but unfortunately, that's the decade he lived in. But and we are past that obviously now, but that's the decade they lived in back then. You have to keep that in mind too.
But I say that's a good segue, which you just alluded to, because I think part of cancel culture that has certainly reared its head in recent years is this idea of history, or how do we judge historic people or times or events. So obviously there was a time, certainly in a few years, where you had a lot of Confederate statues, for example, that were getting taken down, or there were buildings that were named after Confederate. And I understand some of these names got switched with this new administration, that putting the names back or whatever. But you had certainly Confederate buildings or institutions that were renamed because as people became more aware of the background of these people. It's like, look, is anything associated with the Confederacy? Should we be honoring that? And people just people made a choice to say, no, we need to cancel those. Now, again, I have my views when it comes to Confederate statues and Confederate people and all that kind of stuff. I have my own take on that. But what's your take on how we view historical figures who may have been or operated in a time where they're, by today's standards, what they said, what they did would be off-putting? But that was, it could be the 30s, the 20s, the 50s, whatever age that they were in, and that was what they had. And no one had hot bikes back then, and nobody had social media wasn't on your face to capture every thought that you had. But let's say if you do find out about somebody later on, and you're like, oh, that changes your should it change your perception or perspective on that individual? Are we wrong to judge people by today's standards when it comes to historical events or historic people? So I'd love to get your views on it.
I know I'm going to probably piss off a lot of people with this, but I don't care. So I'm going to speak as a Greek. So it doesn't matter if you agree with the historic person or not. It is history. We need to keep it up so remind us where we came from. And let me repeat the way I said it. We need to remember where we came from because those are symbols that we remember coming back. Even in Greece, because they're very overprotected with their history stuff. There are parts in Greece that people don't want to talk about because it's a dark history of it. But unfortunately, that's why we keep it up to remind us not to go back down. Excuse me, not to go back down that route.
Mhm.
That's the point of it.
Mhm.
But obviously, what does this Greek know? He's a dumb Greek, dumb white boy, dumb whatever you want to call me. But there's one thing Greek has done correctly, I think, and we are failing. We're ripping all the statues down. Yeah, he's a traitor. He's a racist. That's why you need to keep it up because it reminds you. Yes, he was a racist. We were through a racist time. We don't want to go back there. But unfortunately, we took 20 steps back, and I think we're back into another race war right now.
Mhm.
That's my personal opinion.
Gotcha.
What's yours, Paul?
Yeah, I think certainly remember, I think the way you keep it relevant, you teach it in the classroom, you show it in a museum. It doesn't have to be a statue in the middle of the city or a monument to the person. It doesn't have to I don't understand the monument, nor do I understand the building. Because again, was the building made? What did the guy do anything that was meritorious for him to be named after that building? And begin, if he founded the thing, then yeah. If you open up a school or an institution in your name or whatever your name is on it, then yeah, I guess keep it. But you want to name it after somebody who what was the basis for the naming after that person? You named a library after a Confederate general or something, or school after a Confederate general. Did the guy start the school? And why did you name it after the Civil War? After the Civil War was over? I mean, a lot of those Confederate statues that you're talking about, those came up in the 20th century, not the 19th century. And they were reminders, certainly, for the people who still believe that the South will rise again. It wasn't about it wasn't about anything that they did that was necessarily honorable. So my thing is, you don't have to have a monument to it. So yes, teach it. I mean, again, in Germany now, they still talk about. I don't want to get the Nazis and Hitler. It's standard curriculum in Germany. You're going to learn about this. We're not going to sweep it under the rug. This is what it is. I've heard many German podcasters talk about in the school system. It is sort of beat into you how bad Hitler was, and they don't sugarcoat it. And it is a practice. But you're not going to go into Berlin and see a statue of Hitler. You're just not. So I don't understand. I don't think that statues and whatnot, mean that we'll forget. But teach your history. Teach all of it. But when you have certain states that are trying to stop certain books from being taught in schools because it makes certain people uncomfortable, even though it's the history that we come from, yeah, I got a problem with that. I got a problem with book censorship. Because you're trying to fit a narrative, and I don't believe in enforcing a lot of religious doctrine on people. 10 Commandments in the school or government or whatever. Teaching Bible in school. I keep that a private matter. So that's kind of where I fall in. But as far as the issue of how do we judge certain people, it's a nuanced conversation. Certainly, you can have people who operated in a time and an era where certain things were common. But again, do I want to patronize that person or their product? So if I found out a guy that I grew up watching from that era, and I found out he said X, Y, and Z about people, this is what he thought about certain people or whatever, yeah, I have a right to say, you know what? I don't want to patronize that person anymore. So I stopped watching. or I stop wearing, or I stop, collecting, or whatever I did with that person. I'm done. That's my right to do as an individual. I can certainly have the right to cancel my patronage of that person. But yeah, but history is tough. We talked about Elvis Presley marrying I think it was Priscilla. I think she was like, or getting with Priscilla when she was like 14 years old. And we just think that's like the most hideous thing in the world. But in the 50s, you got women got married like at 14, 15 years old, especially in the South. That was like normal thing. As soon as you were considered a woman, as soon as you had your menstrual, your period, you were a woman. Getting married at 18, 17, 16. I remember going to high school with a girl. She was 15 years old and she was married. And in New Jersey at the time, you could get married at 15 years of age as long as the parents signed off on it. But she was 15-year-old and married. Again, in today's society, is that widely accepted? Probably not. But in that day, in the 50s or 60s, it wasn't that unusual for a 16-year-old to get married. I mean, but how do we judge that? I mean, by today's standards, we call that guy a pedo or something. You know what I mean? I mean, it's that's how we would look at it now. But I don't, that those are tough conversations. But again, people are getting canceled because as information comes out, as history is uncovered, and we get a fuller picture of who these people were, not what we were told. People are making decisions in terms of whether or not they want to follow someone or not, or they want to quote unquote cancel someone because of that information, which I believe that people are free to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm uncomfortable with certain again, it doesn't matter what their political positions were or what party or liberal, conservative, whatever. It's like you find out certain things about a person that you're not cool with. If you find out someone is a pedophile, you don't care what they did or the causes that they were for or whatever. If that's a line that you don't cross, then you're free to make that decision and call. And if enough people get together to say, we don't think this person, we need to be honoring and celebrating this person anymore, then people will move and take action. Despite the achievements or the known things, we all know Martin Luther King. We all know BMU. You did a show a few weeks ago. We all know he was a bit of a Rolling Stone. We all know he had his dalliances. The FBI was taping him. We all know he was, not the stalwart husband and whatnot. Just like a lot of these figures were. Again, how do you judge? Now, again, for me, I'm not hanging a picture of MLK in my house. I may acknowledge what he did in the cause for civil rights, but I can still call him a lousy husband. I can call Muhammad Ali a lousy husband for what he did. But one thing that I also stopped doing is using terms like good. Like to BMU's point about, again, imperfect people canceling imperfect people. The one thing I stopped doing for the most part in my life, I don't use the word good anymore. Oh, he was a good person. She was a good person or a great person. Because again, what standard are we basing that on? I'll talk about what you did, good and bad. And then people are free to decide how they want to rock with this person or not. Do they want to honor them? They want to put a statue or banner up or whatever. People are free to do that. But I think what it's also done over time is it certainly taught me, again, not to pedestalize people. And that's also, I think, a problem with the culture in general. We idolize and we pedestalize people. And then when we find out there's some things about them that's not kosher, then we destroy them. But they shouldn't have been up there in the first place. But you put so much of your fandom, sometimes fanaticism behind a person, say fan is short for fanatic, you put so much of your energy invested in this person as if somehow this person owes you something. And so, who's to say? Now, again, I do want to address something on the point. I didn't say he married her at 14. I said he got with her at 14. So again, I wasn't laying. I said he got with her at 14 years old. But again, even in that society, that would have been considered improper by today's standards. But I did not say that he married her. Just wanted to make that. That clarification. Now, again, some people says again, MLK destroyed the black community and family. Again, that's a conversation. I said BME was having a conversation on, should we be looking at MLK in another perspective? But again, that could be said about anyone of a historical nature.
See, one thing I realize as you're talking, I'm thinking, what is it the same factor in most of these people? You mentioned they were abusive husbands. Have you realized that?
Yeah.
Like, every major, I don't want to say it was like the black community. I know it's kind of weird from Greek guys saying that, but you have more to say that than I do. But it seemed all the major figures like Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King, and so on and so on. They were shitty fucking husbands, most of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look at what's his name? Damn, I can't remember. Michael Jackson's father. He was a shitty father and a shitty husband, from my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a common thing in your community, Paul?
A common thing? I mean, I certainly, again,
that's a question. I'm sorry if I offended you.
Just from observation, it seems like a lot of artists, I would say that. A lot of our best artists didn't come from the best of circumstances. I was just talking about Earth, Wind, and Fire, Maurice White. Didn't come from the greatest of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow they found that either they had a talent or some gift of some kind, and they were able to find their voice through music or whatever, fame or acting or whatever it was, and they became something. But unfortunately, a lot of times those demons that they grew up with didn't necessarily leave. And so whether or not, now, do you want to say that you want to stick a particular tendency, whatever, solely on the black community? I'm not co-signing on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, again, you can look at a variety of different communities, a lot of different people historically, presidents, heads of state, all kinds of people who, when you look at their lives, yeah, they did some things that weren't right. I remember watching a documentary on, I don't know if you're into painting, but this guy, Bob Ross. Remember Bob Ross? He used to come on public TV, make happy little accidents, and he was paint, and very calming kind of guy, whatever, and had that joy painting series or whatever. He was not the greatest guy, and he was having his dalliances with the show's producer. I mean, so again, what do you do with that? Do you still patronize the product or his series, or do you still watch his YouTube channel or buy his products? Because he did that, I think as a person, you have that individual right to decide. And probably the thing I disagree with the most is from this to Save America 8416. Cancel culture is un-American. I think it's one of the most American things you can do. Sorry, I
that's definitely more American.
Sternly disagree with that comment, but I appreciate you. Sharing, sharing it. So that's your choice. I just disagree with it. I think the ability, you have a right to choose who you decide to patronize and unpatronize. And if you get enough people to get together who have that same view, you're free to organize and campaign and lobby. So I think it's a very American exercise, just as voting and protest are. I think certainly cancel culture falls in that same category. But again, agree to disagree on that particular point.
I think it's very American because even living in Greece, like I said earlier, that's not a thing. That's not the one-on-one America. I'm like going one-on-one America. Simple. I have no. Do you know any other culture does that over outside of ours?
That does what specifically now?
Cancel culture. Any other country,
I think UK. I think a lot of I think you're starting to see, if not more of it, certainly in other developed nations. I think UK certainly. I think there's a spirit there. Canada, I'm sure it happens on a somewhat a regular basis. So I think it's growing, especially again. America is still, I think, the leading exporter of media, of trends, of entertainment, of policies. Again, unless you want to be like a certain state that restricts or blocks U.S. content. That's why I'm a bit shocked that Greece has not become more embracing of cancel culture in recent times. Because if it happens in America, it tends to happen in other places, unless it's a very authoritative type of thing, like if it's like an Islamic state, or some state that limits access, or China or something like that, where they really try to limit your access to certain things or whatever. Like, I don't think you can get on certain social media in China unless you use one of those things that sort of blocks, like
the IP blocker.
VPN, right? VPN or something like that, where you can get out. But they try to control what the people see and watch. And they can certainly paint a narrative of terms of what America is and what is represented. But I don't think it's necessarily an American thing, or if it may have started here. I think it's certainly going to pick up steam as long as there's social media that's available, that you're going to have more of this being emulated in other places, where it's like, you know what, I don't follow what you do, so therefore I'm canceling you. And that's the thing, especially with social media. It's almost like it's a country within countries. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's blocked or you don't have access to those things, it's its own little world where a lot of this canceling takes place.
The biggest thing, I think, it hasn't gone to Greece yet, is how proud Greeks are for what they build and have. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I probably haven't. That's why I haven't seen it or heard about it in Greece yet.
Right.
Could it
now
come?
Yeah. Now, it would be interesting because, again, depending on, I know you're I won't call it fan, but you appreciate Greek history. And so again,
I'm a fan of Greek history.
I just said that.
Yeah, you can say a fan. You can say me a fan. I'm a fanboy, a love boy, whatever.
But I'm saying about like Alexander the Great.
It's one of my favorite
and
heroes.
Again, you sing his praises about the things that he's done. Again, but another student of history may look at Alexander the Great to say he was one of the worst people in the world.
Yeah, he could be a conqueror.
Yeah,
and technically he was. I can't disagree with that.
Right.
I try to look at this in between both people's eyes. Like, let's you mean your example, all right? Let's say you came up to me and said Alexander the Great was the most horrible person ever set foot on this planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
I try to take a step back and understand why through your eyes. And I try to understand that, and I will respect your opinion. I'm not going to disagree. But I also would like you to respect my opinion on that.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the world doesn't work like that. They say, 2 fingers up to you, go fuck yourself.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So, unfortunately, my mentality is not usually accepted in this society right now. And I think we can agree on that.
Right. But I'm wondering, what is the mentality in Greece? Have you seen that change?
Oh, no. Greeks was like, if you argue, say, like, Alexander the Great was the worst king ever, they will fight you on that. They're very proud of their history.
So it hasn't changed. I'm not saying like it's done like a full 180. I'm just saying with, I guess, modern scholarship, whereas people learn about certain things, Alexander the Great, for example, is still held in high regard by the overwhelming majority of Greeks local to Greece
one of them,
and Greek Americans.
King Leonidas is another one. There are months of kings. He is my personal favorite one because it's the first one I actually learned about.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he's my personal favorite. Second is King Leonidas. Obviously just Spartan 300s. So those are my two favorite ones. Why? I just gravitated to them. I have no real reason behind it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so other people have other heroes from the historical, like Troy. Their king was a very good king at the time. You know what I'm saying? He protected his sons. So, and he also was one of the few ones that he actually met his killer of his son. So it depends what story you like. There are so many different stories in Greek history. It's such a rich history. Everybody has their favorites. You know what I'm saying? Like when I was younger, Hercules was my favorite thing. I don't think Hercules is my favorite anymore. I don't have a Greek god favorite anymore. I like them all for their different reasons. And does that answer your question?
I guess if I had a follow-up, would there be anything that would dissuade you from not like him? So let's say new research comes out and it's been discovered that Alexander the Great, fill in the blank. What would be the fill in the blank that would get you thinking differently, if possible? You may say, like, I don't care what comes out. I don't care what they say. He's always going to be my favorite no matter what.
Okay, so let's cut this down like to legit, right? He was a conqueror. He went into people's countries and conquered the country. Some of them were peaceful conquerors. Some of them were massacres. I cannot disagree. He was a conqueror. And every conqueror in history, he has probably deleted enough people for us to count more times. And there's some other ones that he was with this big rope. And they said to him, if you're able to unrope, there were like 100 knots in this rope. If you're able to untie 100 knots, you can have this with no fighting. He told us $100. Oh, sure, not a problem. That's easy. Took his sword out, started hacking on it. Once he got through it, all the knots came apart. Nobody thought about doing that. Was that cheating? Absolutely, it's cheating. But did it work? Absolutely, for him. That was a peaceful conqueror. But there are other conquerors that he had to go in with military power. So I'm not saying he was the right thing to do. I will recognize he has done bad stuff too. Like we know we had multiple military people up here, and they say sometimes good things, you have to do bad things to bad people to do good things to us.
Right.
And that's one of the cases.
But what happens when you do bad things to good people?
Good people.
And that's the thing that happens, and almost inevitably with a lot of these wars or whatnot. There's always going to be innocent victims. There are always going to be
bystanders.
Yeah. And so again, how do you judge? You might say, look, a concert, any imperial tendencies, you could say, you know what, you're against it. But at the same time, you're kind of bound to. If you live in the United States, I think I was watching something, I think Patrick Bet-David, I think he made the comment or something like that, you're saying you're against imperialism. You're just kind of rhetorically putting it out there, but you live in the United States. How do you think the United States became the United States? Or how do you think Greece became Greece, or Rome became Rome, or any of these entities? Because they conquered and they used imperial tactics and means to do these things. So you can say you're against imperialism, but you still live in the United States. I think that is certainly a question for the person. So going all the way back to BMU's question, imperfect people being canceled by imperfect people. I think that is a conversation, and that's, to me, that is a healthy conversation to have. To say that, yes, I certainly I have certain feelings about certain things, but maybe not about other things. Or you think that, or you may think that, okay, something may have happened back in the day, but you know what, we don't have to do that anymore. Like I know what's happened recently with a lot of the war that's going on. That said, look, after World War II, there were documents signed and people agreed on like how war should be waged. Geneva Convention, right? How you treat war. There's certain things you don't do. You don't bomb civilians. You don't torture captives. You don't do any of those things. Now, back before that, I mean, that was like par for the course. You did that to everybody. Geneva Convention, everybody signed on to it, said we don't do those things anymore. What happens when those things are still done? How do you view the society or the culture at that time when you're violating something that you agreed to? So again, judging history or judging these conquerors or whatever, but these great societies that have been built. But you can almost make an argument that there's never been any empire that wasn't violent. You could almost
the Japanese Empire. I love the
Japanese, Egyptians. Pick your dynasty.
Yeah,
China.
The two most deadliest ones that I know. I'm not saying they are that I know of. They were pretty fucked up people. Was the Japanese and the Egyptians. I'm not saying they're the top ones. That's from my understanding. You may know a little more than that. Obviously, I like what I like and I study what I study.
Right.
So, listen, how many cultures take their own lives if you fail on another death that you know of? Japanese was the only one that I know of. So
yeah, I haven't done a comprehensive study on that, so I wouldn't know off the top.
Yeah, from my understanding, only Japanese will take their own lives if they didn't die in battle.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's a whole different conversation for a different show.
Yeah. But yeah, judging by that metric, again, how do we look at historical figures? And I admit, certainly for myself, I think I've gotten more pacifist, if you will, over time. I'm not saying I'm a full-fledged pacifist. We had a show. You guys can go back and watch it a few months. I think it was last year. We talked about, again, just war theory versus pacifism. We did a show on that. We talked about just war theory by Thomas Aquinas and how that applies to modern situations. So again, if you guys want to go back, look up, certainly the gray area, look up pacifism versus just war theory. Certainly that was an interesting conversation that we had. Again, it puts into perspective in terms of, again, how do we view things? And it's certainly just me studying those things, especially when, studying the early church, for example, and how they looked at war and how they looked at those things until Rome adopted Christianity. You couldn't be a Christian and be in the military service. So with Thomas Augustus, that was a pivot, a change, where he started to make allowances for certain things. And then, certainly when Rome adopted Christianity as its national, then there was a marriage of the religion with the state, and imperial power now certainly has sort of Christian backing. And for some people, myself included, I think that changed Christianity. And I'm not always sure that it's changing for the good. Because, again, we started making justifications for imperial acts. And whether or not people believe that's good or not, I don't know, especially with our military, especially the way it is now with God and country and God's on our side, and we fight for just causes and just wars and all that kind of stuff. And again, looking at the history of this country, we know that's not always true. But we like to put that morality behind it because it gets people thinking that what they're doing is for a righteous cause. And it's not always for a righteous cause. So, that's another aspect of this as well. And again, not to get too far off the subject. In fact, we're coming up towards the end of the show. This idea of pacifism. I mean, of cancel culture. Now it says Gandhi defeated Winston Churchill and the British Empire as a pacifist. Now, I've heard that. I've also heard some other things that he said, so I haven't studied certainly the defeat of the British Empire, by the Indians and how much Gandhi was a part of that. I know he was an influencer. I don't think he was ever a head of state or a leader. So again, how much I would have to, you just gave me some homework. Okay. So again, Tracker 001. I'll certainly look into that.
On Gangi, or whatever his name is, he didn't live on like a peasant. He actually during the day he was out doing his thing, and at night he just go to his house. He has servants still in closed behind closed doors. He still lived like a rich person. He ate every night. He didn't ever go on a starve strike like he said he did. It was all for the TVs and everything when he died.
But that's another person then. So we're talking about again. That's another person, right? So we talked about MLK, and isn't it interesting? MLK got, from what I understand, he got his views on non-passive resistance from Gandhi. But now we look at Gandhi, and again, if we start to peel the layers off of Gandhi and see what he was really like, and he wasn't necessarily what we were told, then do we cancel Gandhi? Just like you got more people now.
That's the argument.
More people now are trying to cancel MLK. Now we want to see, do you want to cancel Gandhi next? Since he was like, so again, this can go,
And like I have talked to Indian people. If you tell them the truth to them, oh man, they're up in arms. They want to like take you out. Like literally, they're about they will strangle you for telling them Gandhi's a bad person. Oh no, because they're proud people too, and they don't want to hear their person they grew up on analyzing them, saying he was a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, like a lot of Greeks. I'll use that for example. Obviously, Alexander the Great, for example, or Leonidas, they were great kings, but it's also a dark side to them, all of them. Every single one had a dark side.
Mm-hmm.
Every historical person has a dark side. I don't care who the hell it is. Mm-hmm. Even our presidents, from Clinton to George Washington. George Washington has slaves to run his whiskey farms, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
You saying that's a good person? But that was normal for the time back then.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a good person. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm saying for the time, that's what it was. I don't agree. I don't have to agree with it, but it is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as a general, I'll give him credit as a general. As a general, I think he was a brilliant person overall.
Yeah, and I think one time you showed a video one time on one of our shows. I think it was on that Just War Theory show. You shared a video on Washington.
It was like 4 or 5 months ago we did it. I'm not too long ago, actually.
For sure.
So that will be my final thought, Paul. If you want to take over from there, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, again, we want to appreciate everybody for being here. Again, whether you agreed with our takes or not or whatnot, again, this is a conversation. We certainly took a look at cancel culture from different perspectives. So we talk about historical cancel culture. One thing we didn't really get a chance to touch on was, again, symbols that mean cancel culture. Like if you wear a MAGA hat, is that a cancel?
Really fast. Funny story about a MAGA hat. It means two things. You know that?
No. What's the second? I know the
first one. MAGA word makes sense. Make American great. I think
great
it is.
Again, right.
Manga in Greek, it means big guy. It's actually a compliment.
Okay.
When you hear that. So a lot of Greeks have been wearing that, and people get offended. There's a whole skits about that out there.
Right.
And it's. To me, I don't look at it like that. I'm like, whatever.
Right. But again, if the symbol is such where that there's very polarizing things about it, like an SS. If you were an SS, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can say it looks cool, it's stylish, or whatever. But again, knowing the history that's in it, you get caught wearing an SS, and people get canceled. You get canceled because of it. You can't say that. Oh, well, you can say, oh, I didn't know. But certainly that would be pretty hard to believe in this context. Now, even in today's culture, you wear a MAGA hat or what have you, given all this history that we have with this person. And again, you may agree, you may fully agree with it. You might be on board. I'm team man, all of that. Just be mindful of what that may come with. And don't say, oh, I didn't know it would cause this kind of, I just thought it was a nice hat or whatever. And I'm just trying to be, something, just wear it because I like the hat. But if you get blowback from doing that or what have you, you shouldn't be able to say at this point because you didn't know. But I certainly appreciate your certainly your takes, Pete, and certainly for the chat tonight. Certainly we had a couple.
I was actually going to ask you to do that exactly that compliment. I actually like that,
and we appreciate you. That's what this show is really about. Certainly to come to kind of conversation. Certainly we appreciate when the chat certainly chimes in. I really appreciate that. But yeah, continue to watch. Also, certainly for those who are here for the first time, certainly make sure you hit the like button. Certainly before you leave the show, not only here, but hop over to Sparta HQ Network where the show is being simulcast, and certainly show some love over there on that channel. Certainly we're looking to monetize very shortly on that channel, and so we're very close, and need a few more watch hours. But certainly appreciate the support that you give that channel as well. But certainly for myself, Mr. Bennett, and he is.
This is Sparta!
This is the Gray Area on the Black Man Unfiltered Network, simulcasting Sparta HQ Network. We appreciate you guys spending your Sunday evenings with us. So until next week, in fact, next week, we're going to have a call-in show. Next week, call in certainly for us. So again, anything that we've talked about over the last several shows, you can certainly come on through here, disagree with us, just keep it respectful. We're having a conversation. We're not picking sides. We're just, we just agree on some things. We disagree on others. You're more than welcome to have certainly come up and be part of the conversation. We welcome that, and we want to certainly do that. We do that once a month, and we really try to do a good. We try to do a good job of giving people an opportunity to express themselves in a respectful manner. But for us,
I have to do this before we go.
Go for it.
Because a lot of people like talking. Keyboard warriors, bring it. I'm waiting for a fight. Come on, bring it. Come on. All right, I'm good now. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, again, you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Take care. God bless. We'll see you next time. Good night.